AmaZulu King Misuzulu kaZwelithini has called on the Kwa Zulu-Natal government to urgently convene a summit on climate change. The King says all stakeholders, including traditional leadership, must come up with practical solutions to the problem. He was addressing the official opening of the KZN legislature in Pietermaritzburg today. At least 6 people died on Wednesday after heavy rains caused flooding to parts of the province.
Leaders of government, civil society, business and political parties converged here for the official opening of the legislature. The opening of the legislature by the reigning king dates back many years and precedes the State of the Province address by the Premier. In his address, King Misuzulu kaZwelithini cited the changing weather patterns as a major threat facing the citizens of the province. On Wednesday, the province was hit yet again by flooding, which left a trail of destruction and claimed lives.
I therefore call upon the Honourable Premier to convene a high-level submission on climate change and potential planning. This gathering must bring together all Amakosi and Izinduna who are entrusted with the stewardship of our land so that we may find lasting solution to safeguard our people and our province.
Political parties welcomed the King's address. The ANC in the province says it has kick-started a process of negotiations in order to combine the official opening of the legislature together with the State of the Province address in order to minimize the costs involved.
By the end of this year, we would have consolidated and agreed upon that probably let us go back to legislature, do all the things there and make sure that you don't spend too much. I think it's something that is reachable.
There are mixed views on the matter.
What we are doing is correct, that we allow the king to have his own time to talk with the people of Kwa Zulu-Natal. And thereafter, then the next day we allow the premier to talk about issues that affect the people of Kwa Zulu-Natal, but not mix it.
I'm in favour of negotiating, discussing and coming up in what's in the best interest of the people of Kwa Zulu-Natal.
The King also called for resolutions to the ongoing challenges at Ithala Bank and the Ingonyama Trust. Simpiwe Makanya, SABC News, Pietermaritzburg.
Director of Sustaining the Wild Coast, Sinegugu Zikulu, joins us to expand the conversation. A very good evening to you, Sinegugu. Thank you for your time. I mean, we've just listened to AmaZulu King Misuzulu speaking about how this devastation caused by the recent heavy rains in Kwa Zulu-Natal is a reminder of the reality of climate change. How impactful could a climate change summit be in such a climate?
Yes, the challenge, I think it is great that the King has actually pinpointed to that because it is the reality that is facing the country, the world, and it is important for the leadership at all levels, whether be it at municipalities. So because the more we move into the future, the more serious it is going to be. One thing which is very clear, like if you listen to the people that you have interviewed, that some of them, 5 years down the line, they are still they have not yet recovered from their previous flooding events. So these are the challenges that we're facing in all the big cities in this country. We see the problem of the informal settlement, and most of those informal settlements are in very sensitive areas or in dangerous areas when we're looking at these weather events on floodplains close to rivers. You go to Joburg, you go to Cape Town, we know that every winter in Cape Town they get flooded in those informal settlements. So, and the most vulnerable people, the people who are most in danger of being affected are the poor. And it is high time. So there's a lot of money which is needed to do this. We don't know because we know in terms of the financial situation within the country, the budget cuts and all of that. So, and it is I do not think the country is going to be able to resolve the challenge that we are facing. So the challenges, they are very simple, because climate change impact cuts across all sectors in agriculture. So when these rains, if, for instance, you look back, I was asking the young farmers back at home in Bondoland to send me pictures of the damage. So the amount of damage which is caused on crops, and now it is in the middle of the beans, the planting of beans season. And the amount of damage that has been caused on beans, it already tells the story that the coming winter there's going to be less food available, because the rains coming in at this wrong time has destroyed food. So there's a whole lot of things. It's not just housing, but also when you look at the building of roads. If a road is destroyed now, you're looking at how long it takes the government to be able to repair that particular damaged road. So if you're talking about the people who are cut off now, so the biggest worry is, when is the money going to be available to rebuild that road, so that those people could be able to park their vehicles in a safe place?
You speak about
it's very serious.
Budget constraints, and of course we cannot ignore the impact of budget constraints. But when it comes to the level of preparedness, because this latest catastrophe in Kwa Zulu-Natal has claimed lives. It's left a trail of destruction and damage. How much of an impact could some level of preparedness have in curbing deaths and destruction?
For instance, let's look into the question of housing, because even in the previous floods that happened in Durban were close to 500 people. These were the houses that were built in sensitive environment where they are not supposed to be. And we know that historically, these informal settlements that people live in are in those areas because traditionally in the apartheid South Africa, no land was allocated to the poor within or closer to the city. So for people to be closer to the city, they therefore find this vacant land. And the vacant land is usually the land which is not suitable for housing. So if you're looking into that problem, and you look at the rate at which the government is able to build the houses, then you realize that this challenge, we know that since 1994, a lot has been done by government to build the low-cost houses, but you can see that government is not winning because the number of people living in rural areas coming to urban areas, what we call urbanization, is higher than the rate at which the government is building those houses. So these challenges, so they are numerous, and when people in rural areas, they are hit by these storms, they lost all their livestock. All the mud houses are the most vulnerable again. So they collapse easily during these rains. So usually those people, if they lost everything, then the option would be to find relatives who are already in cities. Then they come to the city. And when they come to the city, because they are poor people, they will go into the informal settlement, which is making them more vulnerable than they were in the rural areas. So trying to address these challenges requires a concerted effort at all sectors of government. So whether you're looking at national government, there are things that need to be addressed at national government, like your energy, like in terms of the water, even the question of water, even in terms of the carbon tax, because we're producing our goods in South Africa that we export using the coal-generated energy. And in terms of the global laws, we are liable for the carbon tax. So we are going to be taxed a lot due to the fact that we are adding carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. South Africa is one of the leading countries in terms of emission. I think we are in the top 15. And because of that, we are one of the top polluters in the world. So we need to do something about changing our energy mix. So that's something that needs to be addressed. So when, as a country, we continue to look for oil and gas, which is going to lead to us increasing our carbon emission, is another problem, because we're going to have to pay a lot of carbon tax. The goods that we produce in South Africa, when we export them, then we're going to have to be paying lots of tax. So
that's an important issue that you cover there, Sinegugu, especially as you highlight the issue around water. Something that President Cyril Ramaphosa himself really spoke in great depth about, the water challenges in his State of the Nation address, which is something that's highly imperative as we look at the entire value chain and the contributors, the trigger points when it comes to climate change, and hopefully coming to some solutions there and tabling some sort of discussion that moves the conversation forward with the King's call for a climate change summit. And very quickly, before we let you go, I mean, looking at the value that the summit could have, and of course, you mentioned budget constraints as a big chunk. How impactful could such a conversation be in at least trying to find some solutions to a problem that is not going away anytime soon?
It could be impactful because as a country, actually, because we have the foundation, the laws, and we do have the climate change strategies, but as to how vigorous are we as a country in implementing those adaptation plans, how vigorous are we in implementing the mitigation plans, those are the other stories. So it is not enough to go to an Indaba or Imbizo to discuss. It is not enough to have plans, but you need to implement, and you need budgets to implement those, and you need to see everyone in every sector, in every department doing something, because climate change is not something that is only a responsibility of the Environment Department. It is a responsibility for everyone, because adaptation is needed in all sectors. So it is good to talk, because we need to talk about these things. We need to bring about change. We need to make sure, for instance, municipalities need to stop building low-level crossing bridges. Amongst the other things, if municipalities want to save money, they need to avoid building roads across wetlands, because whenever you build a road across a wetland, that's where the vehicles get stuck in the mud. So you need to go around the wetland. And when you do that, when you avoid building roads across wetlands, you are saving the money you do not have as a municipality, because you will have a road which requires needs less maintenance. But when you build roads through wetlands, you are going to require, after each and every heavy rain incident, you're going to have to repair the road. So the change needs to happen in all sectors, and we need to budget for recovery or for repairs after all of these events, because as the planet continues to warm up, there is going to be more frequent freak storms or rain bombs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Just like thank you.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, but we do thank you for weighing in on this very important discussion. Director of Sustaining the Wild Coast, Sinegugu Zikulu, speaking there about the proposal from King Misuzulu around a climate change summit in Kwa Zulu-Natal.